name is Dan J. Gregory, and I am committed to hunting down the secrets of business mastery and human performance. My goal for the Unstoppable podcast is to share insights from some of the most successful entrepreneurs, inspiring thought leaders, world-class athletes, and prominent celebrities to help you to become unstoppable in business and life. Each week I'll be bringing you a new interview with an inspiring person and sharing my own results as I pursue the answers to the question, how can I create the ultimate edge in my business, make a significant impact, and live an extraordinary life? To kick off the Unstoppable podcast, I've put together a very special 10-part series designed to help you to achieve your most adventurous goals this year. Each episode within this series will contain specific lessons to help you become unstoppable in business and life. And the first 5 episodes are available for download right now on iTunes and Stitcher. So please make sure you subscribe to the show to get the full 10-part series. Welcome back to episode 2 in this special 10-part series of the Unstoppable podcast. In the previous episode, I shared a little about myself, introduced you to the reasons why I started the Unstoppable podcast, and shared the first major chunk of this special 10-part series, which was all about the power of thinking big and finding your major burning desire. If you've not had the chance to check out episode 1 yet, I would strongly recommend starting there before diving into this episode. Today's episode is all about how to overcome the fears that hold you back, and I'll answer the question, how can I overcome my fear so that I can achieve my goals faster and with less resistance? As I was putting this episode together, I was reflecting on my first ever real feeling of fear. And I actually struggled to remember any major fears from my childhood, when I was growing up, which is a little surprising given my, to put it nicely, overprotective mother. I remember panic streaks of, Daniel! There was all this kind of situations where perhaps I could have been in danger, but it never really felt like it to me. The first kind of real memory that I came up with in terms of fear was taking the stabilizers off my bicycle. I'd been practicing for ages with these little tiny wheels attached to the side to help me keep my balance. And when they came off, I genuinely thought I might come off and fall and hurt myself, but I didn't. And not until later on, at least, when I got a bit more adventurous. I also remember visiting the local park where I'd regularly play football and just enjoy the outdoors. And there was these different trees, loads of different trees, all kinds of shapes and sizes. I remember climbing the trees, and the braver and braver I got, the larger the trees I went up. And the more I began to notice how far it would be to fall off one of those tree branches and the possibility of hurting myself, the more I kind of had that sensation of fear. But it never really stopped me, and I carried on climbing. And fortunately, in that instance, I never had any problems. The other memory I had was when I would walk home from that park. I often come across the neighbor's dog on the corner. It intimidated me. It was huge. It would come running out barking, and it just looked ferocious. That certainly gave me the fear. But all of these fears are the kind of natural physical fears where they're all about avoiding harm. Fear is primarily designed to help us avoid physical pain and death. And at that point in our development as kids, for most of us, our minds have not been exposed to any kind of emotional trauma or negative experiences. So our fears are those purely physical fears and work as they're supposed to and help us to survive. However, things tend to change as we get a little older. So as I entered my teens, I remember asking the girl for a date and having that first taste of rejection. So what happens? You get a sudden and massive sense of pain and maybe a little embarrassment too, especially if you ask for dates the way I did. So it wasn't exactly a great incentive to ask for the next date. And we all wonder where the fear of rejection comes from. Well, actually, the process of fear of rejection, in fact, begins earlier in life. But as we get older, the fear we experience changes, and it moves away from that initial survival instinct that we had when we were kids, where it was all about fear of injuring yourself or hurting yourself, to become more about emotional fear and emotional comfort versus that physical safety. It's no longer about being chased by ferocious dogs or worrying about falling from the tree branch. It becomes about being emotionally safe. Things like the fear of rejection, the fear of failure kick in as we get older. Fear becomes a product of our own creation, our own mental construct, if you will, versus that survival instinct that protects us from physical harm and death. This kind of emotional fear causes people to act like they're powerless at times and actually avoid creating the life that they want to live because of this self-created fear. To give a classic example from my own life, 5 years into my corporate career, I became entirely frustrated about the direction my career was going. On the surface, I was successful and getting some good results, but underneath, I was totally dissatisfied and unfilled. Yet it took me another 3 whole years to buck up the courage to actually leave. Why? It was fear. Do I have what it takes to be successful as an entrepreneur, I asked myself, or am I good enough? It was all fear of failure and fear of not being enough. When fear becomes your driving force, it's the thief of your light, and it's going to hold you back from creating a life that you love. It detracts people from having higher aims. It dissolves desire. It took me 3 years to overcome the fear of failure. It took until the point where I was in total leverage, where enough was enough. I evaluated all the options and decided that as long as my brain still worked and my heart still beats, I will find a way forward. And that's a belief that I still live by today. So I quit. And guess what? I didn't die. My heart still beats and my brain still works. And if you listened to the previous episode, I went to California and had an excellent time. However, over the course of building my business in the next 3 years, I faced many challenges and struggles, and I've also had to face my fears over and over again. And at times, my own irrational fear has totally held me back, and it's left me standing on the sidelines and not even putting myself in the arena, which to me is the ultimate failure. You have to put yourself out there. It's caused me to struggle physically, emotionally, financially, and even in my relationships because I'm not standing up and being the best version of myself. Fear can manifest in all kinds of ways, whether it's worry, anxiety, indecision, procrastination, perfectionism, stress. You know, that word stress is really just the achiever word for fear. How has fear shown up in your life? How has it held you back in the past? What's it costing you? What's fear costing you right now? I faced everything from the fear of rejection to the fear of failure to even the fear of success. You know, what would happen if I hit the big time? Would I be able to handle it? It's a good problem to have, but I know it's a real fear for some people. I've had fear of not being enough repeatedly, even as recent as creating this podcast, that small voice of fear, like the little devil on my shoulder speaking doubt into my mind. Am I good enough? Who's going to listen to the podcast? All these questions are driven by fear. However, you've only got 2 choices in life. You can be driven by fear or you can be driven by freedom. There'll only ever be one victor, and I choose freedom. There are 5 key lessons that I've learned in my pursuit for freedom and avoiding fear. Number 1, confront your fear. You can be run by your fear, or you can run your fear. You can take control. You can be the master of your fear. You can own it. It's all about confronting your fear, but you don't want to get too close. You don't want to make fear your pet. They say keep your friends close and your enemies even closer, but the same is not true for fear. You can't get too close to fear as it will hold you back. I always remember the story of the scorpion and the frog, where the scorpion was looking to cross the river and he meets this large frog, and the frog can obviously travel through the water to the other side. So the scorpion says to the frog, look, I'm trying to get to the other side. Would you help me? Would you help me cross the river? And the frog naturally says to the scorpion, but you're a scorpion and scorpions sting. And if you sting me, then I'll die and you'll drown too. But the scorpion says, I know that is true, but if I was to sting you, we'd both die. So why would I do that? So after some talk, the frog finally agrees to take the scorpion across the river. But as they're crossing the river, the scorpion is on the frog's back, and guess what happens? The scorpion, it stings the frog. The frog says, why would you do that? We're both going to die. And the scorpion says, I'm a scorpion. Stinging is what I do. Now, the same is true for our fears. We can't let them too close because they will sting us, but we need to be able to confront our fears and embrace the truth of the situation so that we can send them away like the frog should have done with the scorpion. We need to be aware of what's actually happening in the moment that fear shows up so that we can take control and put an end to the fear. And this takes us on to number 2, which is self-awareness. Self-awareness is about noticing what's happening and asking yourself, is it the truth? Question the fear. Is it rational? Is it real? And often it's possible for us to reverse the fear completely when we seek the truth. An example of this would be the fear of loss. For example, when I was leaving my corporate career, I had the fear of losing the comfort and the security of my pay, the routine, knowing the environment, and liking my colleagues. The safety of staying at my job was often appealing. However, when I reversed the fear and I looked at everything that I stood to gain by leaving, rather than what I stood to lose by staying, then all of a sudden I saw it in a different light, and what I stood to gain was much more significant than the fear. Secondly, how about the fear of not being enough? You know, with enough time, effort, and persistence, we can all learn most of what we need to succeed in any endeavor. So whenever you're questioning, am I good enough? Can I do this? What is the real truth of the matter? Everyone always starts at the beginning, even those with a natural talent. No one's born able to ride a bicycle, for example, not even Chris Hoy or Bradley Wiggins, both famous British cyclists, for those of you not in the know. And they had to endure years of persistence, training, and struggle to achieve what they have. We weren't even born with the knowledge to use an iPhone. I know that might seem a little ridiculous and hard to believe. They're kind of glued to our hands these days. But we even had to learn how to use these devices. Everyone has to start at the beginning, no matter what they do. So that fear of not being enough, confront the truth, what's real. You can always learn the steps to move forward. So what fears are you facing right now? Confront your fears and ask yourself, what is the truth? Number 3, make your goals and your reasons why bigger than your fears. When you've got something magnificent to look forward to, something that inspires you, something that excites you, your fears are going to be intimidated by that vision. Your worries will seem insignificant and fade in comparison to the vision of that magnificent life. Even if it takes some struggle to create, it's going to be worth it. Learn to embrace fear and enjoy the struggle and never allow other people's worries and fears to rub off on you. What would you do if it was absolutely impossible to fail? How would you spend your time? Failure was not an option. What would you do differently? Number 4, take action. Preparation can, of course, help when you're facing your fears, but only action gets the job done. You can't research yourself into success. Courage is to take action and do the important in spite of fear. Let action plow through your hesitation, because once you take action, your fears will subside. My question to you is, what have you put off or delayed because of fear? Create a list of everything that you've put off and plan your next move. Not only just plan that move, but actually take the first step. I always say that once you've made a decision that you're going to do something, it's really important to take that first action in that moment. Besides, once you start taking action and facing your fears, it's an opportunity to grow. Each fear that you overcome and tackle gives you more power to take on the next challenge and gives you that strength to move forward. Number 5 is state. State means how you feel in the moment. So imagine yourself as a fearless warrior. All of us have that mode where we're just absolutely unstoppable. I'll be talking about how to get into that unstoppable state in a future episode. But we've all had times where we felt absolutely powerful, whether it's in sport, in business, in our relationships or work. We've all had moments where we felt on top of the world. What we need to do is be able to tap into that state. That state is normally combined with absolute certainty and total belief. So how would you see your fear if you had absolute certainty and total faith in your abilities and you knew that you could not fail? Once you get in that state of mind of absolute unstoppable power, then you can confront any fear. I hope these 5 tips will help you embrace your fears. I never say eliminate the fear, because remember, it is still there to help you survive and keep you from physical pain and death. Just watch out for that little devil on the shoulder who holds you back emotionally. If you're an entrepreneur or looking to start a business and you find that fear is holding you back from unleashing your greatness, then why not hop on a call with me and we can bust that fear on the spot. Go to www.unstoppablepodcast.com/strategy session and sign up for a free 40-minute session with me. Thank you for listening to the second episode of the Unstoppable Podcast. Remember to subscribe on iTunes to be sure that you receive the full 10-part series, and head over to unstoppablepodcast.com to review the show notes and be part of the conversation. I would be mightily grateful if you would please share this episode with others and leave a 5-star review on iTunes to help spread the word. In the next episode of this 10-part series, I'll be examining another momentum killer, self-doubt. I'll be sharing a process that will skyrocket your self-belief and help you to live life in a state of absolute certainty so that you can smash your most adventurous goals. Episode 3 is available right now, so if you're ready to go, I'll see you in a few moments on the next episode. Until next time, live without limits and get ready to be unstoppable.